Before we gonna talk about the new works, maybe we start with a classical introduction of our artist and talk about the early works he did in the last 14-15 years. Luca Trevisani was born in Verona in 1979 and lives and works in Berlin, and he teaches at the Libera Università di Bolzano in Bozen and at the University in Venice. And he showed his works in international groups and solo shows, and I just want to mention a few, like in the GAM, Turin, Kunsthalle Wien, Museo Marino Marini, Maxi Roma, Marco Roma, Haus am Waldsee, Magasin Grenoble oder Mart Rovereto und Manifesta 7 2008. He has published a lot of books, for example in 2014 at the publishing group of Humboldt Books, the book Water Ikebana. And he released some experimental films, like It's a Difficult Word, in 2013 the movie Glaucoca Maleo, and I think in 2016, last year, the film Sudan about the last living white rhino. Maybe we can talk about this film works later. And he's an award-winning artist. So, for example, in 2013, he won the Moroso Award for Contemporary Art in the New York Art Prize. In 2011, the Premio Fondazione Ettore Fico in Turin. 2010, the New York Prize of the Italian Cultural Institute in New York. Or in 2007, the Premio Furla per l'Arte in Bologna. Yeah, we are sitting in front of his new works, but we start talking about the old ones. And maybe we start really with the beginning and the questions, how did you come to art? Because what really is interesting about him, he's not only an artist, he's also an art historian. And I think this combination makes it really interesting because you have so many different layers in your work, and some always give hints into really deep art history. And yeah, but when did you start? And how did you come to the art world and the art business? Because I read in a text some rumors about graffiti and hip-hop culture.
It's true. Period. No, it's always silly how to reply to such a question where everything started. It never started, no? It's like a virus, and suddenly you realize you're healed and you have to go to bed, no? There's never a moment when you go, oh, now I'm getting healed. It's something that is like a flux, no? It's not really easy to understand where everything is starting. There's not a moment when you're switching a button. There's just a smell, a parfum, something you smell and you like it and you want to be part of that community or spend your energy in this part of the society, and step by step you're realizing that you're totally fucked up and you can't go back. That's the way it is. And maybe I decided, and I became a real artist when I quitted all the other possibilities. I was working as an assistant at the university, I was doing so many things, and I decided, no, I just want to try. I want to be an artist. And I quitted all the rest of the possibilities, putting my very back on a wall and putting all my energies and efforts in these.
Okay, you took lessons with Tobias Rehberger and also with Alfredo Jar.
Yeah.
Did that help?
It always helps. I mean, being an artist, it's about talking with people and talking with other artists. I believe that art for art's sake means only that we are doing art for you and mainly for the other artists and the artist community. And so, which is not a bad thing at all. But really talking with the other artists and learning from them, stealing from them, understanding who you are, confronting yourself with other issues and other people. And you're learning a lot, especially when the other artists are very far from your interest. Because then you understand what you want to protect and where you don't want to waste your energies. And yeah, it's very simple, but it's very true.
Yesterday I went through your, we can say, early catalogue raisonné and looked at the past 14 years. And you mentioned in an interview that you did the first artwork in 2003, or that's the official, first artwork. But going through the years and your artworks, I had the impression that you found really early topics that you're interested in and you are still interested in, and there's a kind of continuity and a deep interest in art history, art theory, but also in the social, in the spatial, and of course the body in a space. You're playing with different layers. So I came with a kind of thesis.
Okay.
Now I just wrote down what I thought yesterday night, and I wrote down, your work has developed over the last 15 years with constant interest in theory of art, art history, culture and philosophy on the one hand, and on the other hand and deep interest in nature, body and physical experience. So, and I can read out of this like contradictional positions that it's a little bit like structuralists. On the one hand you have the culture, and on the one hand you have the nature, or art and technique, or so hard and soft materials, or the human and the nature. Or it's I think you always play with these contradictions, and I think it's a kind of thing which started really early, more or less with the first artwork in 2003. And maybe when we talk about the new works later, we still can find these topics. Would you agree with that?
No, I totally agree. You know, most of the time I'm feeling so, not really lost, I was saying to you before, but doing so many things. And I think that I'm for real an experimental artist. And by meaning that experiments can go wrong. So being an experimental artist, which means also wasting a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of efforts in something you want to inquire, and maybe you're finding yourself totally lost in the middle of nowhere. But still I have some very important needs or visions or attractions, and for sure I will move from the history of art or the history of culture to very relevant examples. And that's why I went to visit Sudan, that's why I went to this grotto, that's why this example can come from the history of art, but also to the history of our world, to our society, relevant crazy people or dreamers, like Kieser and other people like that. So people or animals or situation where I think everybody of us have to learn from, and also the way of learning from, which is pretty much about our body, chemical reaction, like a chef, doing something, preparing something for the audience, being aware that the only successful way is without any press release, without any explanation. I mean, we are going to a restaurant, nobody is really explaining you what you're eating, no? And I think that the good art is doing the same. So being able to translate or to communicate or to create a question mark is really able to be freestanding in front of the audience. That's why I really believe in natural rules and regulation, chemical reaction, and all these kind of things.
In an alchemistic way.
Yeah, chemical, alchemistic, but without any kind of religious or mystery layer.
From the beginning you are working with different materials, so I just can name a few. Plaster, cardboard, photography, wood, acrylic glass, helium balloons, caramel, film, marble, eggshells, feathers, plants, drying plants. So, and yeah, you're working with fragile materials, biological materials. You're interested in forms that vanish, that disappear. Yeah, how do you integrate these materials in sculptures or in your mobiles? What is the starting point working with this kind of materials?
It's pretty much about time. We talked about space, and obviously we have to talk about time. Most of the things I really want to do are dealing with time, because I want them to be ephemeral or to underline the very, not dramatic, but very important physicality we are facing, all of us. No? Everything is coming and going, and this process of things that are not lasting forever, it's very, very relevant. It really belongs to us, and this is something I really want to play with. Not just to learn from it, but also to compare myself and my audience with this issue. And most of the time I want to play with very also erotic materials, but not in terms of sexuality, but in terms of something you can really play and understand with the body. And this has to do with time, and also with materials that are not pretending to be there forever. And also I'm getting very, very bored easily. That's why I'm changing a lot of materials most of the time.
I think that you found these topics like the transformation of materials and fragility and transience in your early works really, really quick. And to give an impressive example, maybe you can talk about the floating bananas. Because the floating bananas became a kind of legendary sculpture, and I never saw something like that before. So, and I think it's an outstanding work which brings all this we talked about the last 5 minutes really on a special point.
The video installation Floating Bananas, it's very simple for me. I was in Philadelphia at the Historical Natural Museum, and I saw a very weird machine. It was just visualizing a very simple natural law, so 3 bodies moving all together, creating a mobile, but in a very odd way, very American. And these objects were really looking like bananas. And I was really mesmerized by these bronze elements. They were human bodies, actually, like circus people that were looking like bananas where they were floating. And I took a very simple note with the phone. It was 7 years ago. And then I was planning to do a show in the gallery in Berlin, and I had the idea of recreating these things for real. So not just about making a drawing, but if this is really about objects, creating a system which is about balance, then I have to recreate it for real, not just a drawing. But it's not about, this is really about all my works. It's not about how things are looking like, but how things are really working. So instead of making like an image, I recreated a system with everything, like the beamer, the DVD reader, the screen, everything on balance, and I was projecting this film, but all the structure that were keeping everything in balance were ropes, thread, and then real bananas, keeping everything in system in balance. But of course, the show is in a gallery, it's from 4 to 6 weeks, and so bananas in 6 weeks are really changing. They are smelling a lot. They're changing the weight, and so every system is no more in balance, and the beamer is projecting the video on the wall, the screen is going to the floor, and like that. It's really like a system that's trying to regulate itself, but without any kind of success. And yeah. And obviously the artist that was after me in the gallery, which is from Vienna, is a friend, is Gerwald Rockenschau. He was really upset, not really upset, but what am I doing with this mail? And this is part of my work. No, because I think that's also why I'm doing all these things, because our identity is a cloud. It's not an object in marble. And as a cloud, you don't know where it's gonna rain. You don't know when it's raining and how. And this idea that something is really belonging like a smell to a cloud, you can't stop, you can't freeze, you can decide where it's starting and where it's ending. And yeah, and it's floating.
And was it still, when Gerwald's show was put up, was it still in the gallery?
Yes. When bananas are really intense as a smell, and after so many weeks, they're getting super dried and
they're getting heavier, right? Or
lighter.
They're lighter?
Lighter.
Okay.
And so the rest of the, like the beamer is going down, and also the screen is going down, but with different weight, and so it's really like changing.
One of your really first works was dedicated, or is dedicated, to Francesco Lo Savio, and in one of our first talks, you talked about Lo Savio as really important for you. Can you explain a little bit this?
Francesco Lo Savio was one of the most relevant artists from the 50s and 60s in Italy, not very well known now on international market and scene, but he was one of them, like this example of people or references I really want to play with in a very open way. And it was, most of the art historians say he was a pre-minimalistic artist. He was doing this work with iron, like no color, before the Americans, before everybody else. But a very intriguing thing for me was he was really writing a lot of text about light, the power of lights passing through his objects in a very monachal way, like a monk, thinking about all the materiality of our world, and then he was really going into architecture, and it's another aspect that's very relevant for me. Yeah.
And architecture is relevant for you, or you like
no, architecture, yeah.
Like Alvar Aalto, for example.
Yeah, sometimes I'm just using some names and references in a very playful way. I don't want to be like the nerdy one, but it's very important to construct your own series of tools. And also it's very important to literally destroy all the hierarchies we think they are given and untouchable. So it's like bringing all these names, all these examples, all these people, and all these possibilities on the same level, like on a platform, because I guess it's something everybody of us has to do. Because only if you're bringing very holy names or very weird ones all together and you start drinking them, learning from them, with no scary acts, then you can really learn. Otherwise, you're just repeating what somebody else understood. And that's the same I want to do with materials, like the same I did here. Start with some, and I'm always doing works with elements everybody else can buy in a shop, in a market, like bananas, helium balloons, very light wood sticks. Because this is really about how to construct your own way to understand reality.
Besides the space and art space, you are interested in the public space or the space of human traces as well. So you did a series of works called Territorial Pissings. It's a song by Nirvana named that way, and I think it was marble sculptures, right?
Ceramic.
Ceramic.
Very
okay.
fragile ones.
Okay.
I mean, there was, and still there is a very kind of an obsession from the art society and system for the public sphere. Like, we want to be good, we want to take care of everybody in a very odd way. And I decided, I was doing a workshop in Faience, the city of ceramic, with a lot of students, and I said, listen, if we want really to think about public space, there are a lot of people living or outside or deciding, like a dog, this is my place, because they're pissing outside, no? Like people going to a discotheque, drunk people, or homeless. So what we have to do is to try to make a cast of this pee on the road. And this is the objective, this is the work. Trying to make a cast of the pee we're finding on the road.
Yeah, I think it's 2010, right?
Yes.
And in the same year, you started to use the scanner for the series fly fishing. Is it
Yes.
was it the first time you used the scanner?
Not really. I was using the scanner also in the previous years, but not so, not in a such direct, not with in another way. Yeah. Yeah, the scanner for me is very important because it's something, as I said before, everybody can use. It's very simple, it's very cheap, and it brings all together different visions. It's an image, but it's also a frottage. It's a photo, but it's not really a photo. It's like a cast of something, but it's also like yeah, dividing the reality in layers. And it's something super automatic, and of course there's a very big and huge reference with all the artists from the avant-garde who are playing with direct prints and so on.
And you started with scanning original material, like living biological material.
I started by creating landscapes on the scanner with natural elements like leaves, flowers, and what I was able to find in shops and supermarkets and restaurants. And I was creating these landscapes without really being interested in the way they were looking, but also in the way, because I really don't know what will be visible for the scanner on the surface, but just creating landscapes. And then having a very, very high resolution quality, which takes a lot of time, like also half an hour, something like that back then. And I was doing this in open air. So if the wind is moving something, if it's starting raining and so on, everything is visible and it's really writing down all this. Now, another reference that came to my mind, it's very important for me for using the scanner, is the idea of a fossil, like a technological fossil. And nowadays it's very cheap to buy 3D scanner and very high-tech technological weapons to depict reality and to reprint whatever you want. And that's why I decided to go back to a very simple A4 flat scanner from an office. So very simple and lo-fi. This interest or obsession with time-based sculptures that have been broken by the time passing by and so on, I decided to make a lot of interviews with sculpture already existing and made by somebody else. So I made a list of abstract sculptures dedicated to singular personalities, heroes, people, relevant people for society. And this is, for instance, I know it's hard to believe, but this is Federico Fellini by Arnaldo Pomodoro, which is a very well-known, at least in Italy, sculpture. And this is a very huge sculpture. This is like a pyramid upside down, 3 meters and something high. And what I'm doing is with some sticks, adhesive like those, very simple. I'm going around by myself, or if the sculpture is very big with a friend of mine, I'm selecting sculptures, open air sculpture, outside, in free world, where everybody is allowed, or maybe not allowed, to touch, to destroy, to break, to see, and also where birds can shit on the sculptures and everything, the snow, the rain, everything. So the sculpture is really open. And I'm making a scan, like a skin of the sculpture. And by doing so, since the scanner is an A4, I have to find a way to reconnect digitally all these images, and I decided just to use these elements. Very simple. I attach them on the surface, and then one layer after the other, I have all these images. And it's pretty much the same technique Canova was using to make a copy of the sculpture. So there's another relevance to reference to the idea of sculpture. And I'm gluing digitally all of these parts, and then I'm printing them on canvas. I'm washing the canvas in a washing machine because I don't like the post-internet super high-quality look of the canvas. And then it's going on a stretcher, like a very simple flat image. And it's a series of works. Yesterday night I was scanning Otto Wagner here in town, and then I did Rosa Luxemburg in Berlin, Pier Paolo Pasolini in Roma, and so on. It's like a series of people we have to learn from, more or less. And obviously I really like the idea that I'm also making an homage to the sculpture that were doing the works. And
so you start preparing the scanner and the sculpture with the points, and then scanning. And how many scans did you do for this?
Oh, an A4, it's more or less like that, so 300, 400, 500.
For one work?
For one work, yeah, a couple of days, yeah. It's just me, the scanner, the computer, and a friend, but maybe just for the sympathy of spending time all together. And yeah, and it's pretty much about making interviews, I will say. So I have the curiosity, I want to visit somebody, I'm making this very simple question, which is about the way it looks. And I also decided to make casts of abstract sculpture, because it's pretty much asking our contemporary visual culture how an abstract sculpture is able, an abstract painting, an abstract object is able to tell something, or maybe not. And it's also about the heritage. So we were talking about time in a different way.
Because you're doing more things at the same time, so putting a three-dimensional work into two dimensions, and using digital technique and coming out with an old-fashioned technique. Then you use water, and you use sometimes the sun to develop the photographies.
No, this is a very simple
okay.
Digital print.
Okay.
Only here I use the sun. Yeah, but the digital culture and the digital real is just a technique. It's just a possibility. That's why I really want to push it more over, and to develop it with different very silly things, acts like washing machine. It's not just for the look, but also for not listening to this technological situation as a holy doll you have only to respect and to listen to. No, it's something you can play with. It's just making your camera. And yeah, since I'm doing these works in open air and nobody is, I am never asking any permission to do so, because since it's in open air, it's part of the work. It's outside. I'm not ruining anything. In Italy, nobody gives a shit, so nobody's asking you what you're doing. Here as well, I have to say, and thanks God. But in Berlin, everybody was stopping me, and I was saying with the scanner, I'm taking a photo, no? Yeah.
Okay, and the work series you did here. You scanned a cave.
For many reasons. Last year I was in Palermo, Sicily, and I discovered this incredible grotto, which is now close to everybody, and this is very relevant for the work I did. It's more or less totally covered by inscriptions and drawings from 15,000 years ago, like very long time ago, and it's incredible because most of the drawings are really looking like Matisse, and you rediscover that the idea of abstraction, the idea of dance, the idea of knowing the body, it's not new at all. Then, this is the unique inscription in a cave ever found in the world history where you have a ritual, so people celebrating all together something, and this is the unique one ever found, and I was very mesmerized, like, oh my God. And since it's close to the public, because the mountain is kind of collapsing, is very dangerous only for this reason, sadly, I decided, no, I have to do something on it. I have to make something like postcards to let people know this treasure, because this is fantastic. This is so important. This is another monument. And another interview, another example. I have to make it visible. And I was lucky, or I was really pushing enough to be allowed to get into the cave. And I've asked to the archaeological staff if I was allowed to make my scan direct, and they looked at me like, you're totally crazy, this is so important, get the fuck out of here. And but then in the 50s, when the cave was discovered, they made a cast in plaster. And I was allowed to make a cast of this cast, which to me is always also very intriguing. I mean, a copy of a copy. Mm-hmm. And I applied the same technique, the adhesive dots and everything on this copy, which is the very size you see here, 2 meter and something for 1 meter and 58, with this diagonal cut. Mm-hmm. And I was asking myself what to do. I had this digital file, very high quality, because every A4 part is high quality. So this image is really like incredibly over-defined. But I suddenly realized it wasn't really interesting to print it like that. What I really like about this image, I don't know if you've been inside before. I mean, it's such an incredible encounter. You understand that what we pretend it's new, it's not new at all. But we don't know nothing about this image. What I really like is that we have no tradition that linking us to this image. We have no clue. 15,000 years ago. What is it? We don't know.